listening to the Jboy Show, your number one source for Auburn and the SEC.
My goal was to run through his soul and grab his heart when I run through his soul. Kurt, Nate, Coach Dab. Those are memories.
I think we've established ourselves as, I think, the premier conference in college football.
Now, the SEC is better at the top. It's better in the middle.
The Southeastern Conference remains the premier conference.
Now takes the snap. Looking for the receiver. He's got Lutz. Kirk. Touchdown, Auburn!
Think about it. It's always been the SEC and everybody else trying to catch it.
I think this is probably the best league from a competitive venue standpoint.
Capable teams. You just look at those programs, the way they recruit, how they invest.
Snap to Burrow. 3 steps. Fires. Back corner of the end zone. Over the shoulder catch. Did he hold on? He did. Justin Jefferson. Touchdown, Tiger.
And now, your host, Jboy.
All right, everybody, and thank you for joining us on a very special edition of the Jboy Show. We have former Auburn Tiger, former NFLer, former Decatur high schooler, Jerraud Powers. Jerraud, really appreciate you taking some time, man.
I appreciate you guys having me.
Hey, no problem. Well, man, let's start. I kind of want to talk about, your career, man. You're a great example of, number one, somebody that fought through adversity and became an elite player. Obviously you played in the NFL. Can you kind of just talk about the stuff that you went through to get, where you are now?
Outside of the ups and downs that comes with every athlete, as far as injuries, dealing with politics, the whole nine. I was a guy that, didn't really look like he belonged. I was a shorter corner, wasn't the fastest, wasn't the quickest, wasn't the most athletic. So I used to have to just find different traits and different ways that I could work on, that I could take on the field and use to my advantage. So I used to always think mentally I could be the smartest person on the field. So I used to grind on just studying the game, studying people that played the position at my height, talking to different coaches on what I need to do every offseason, just trying to critique myself the worst way that I could so that when I faced any other criticism from any outsiders, it never really fazed me. So it was more so behind the scenes, just trying to build that tough mentality. Yeah, exactly. I think that's a great point. And also, me, being a special teams guy and coaching special teams for a while, you're a great example of, if you go out there and show you can play on special teams, and some great examples of that are, you recovered a huge onside kick against South Carolina. You blocked a punt. You were doing things on special teams that they said they had to get you on the field. Can you just talk about how that avenue opened up for the rest of your time at Auburn? The special teams part, well, going in, if you're a defensive player or a young guy, period, once you get into college, you're going to play special teams. It don't matter if you're a future superstar or not. Exactly. Every guy goes through the process where he has to play special teams. So my younger days at Auburn, we were kind of stacked in the secondary position at corner. I mean, you had David Irons, you had Patrick Lee, you had Jonathan Wilhite, you had myself, Walter McFadden. You had all these guys that end up getting drafted. Yeah. And it was almost like, all right, we got to kind of compete for this and compete for that. Well, the quickest way to get on the field is special teams, and I knew that. So I used to take special teams as serious as I could, because I knew that was my role as a youngster. And I just knew if I just kept competing every day, as far as at the cornerback and nickel spots, that eventually I'll get my opportunity there. But my first opportunity definitely came on special teams to play.
Definitely. And one thing, Jerraud, I remember, again, watching you play. And again, I'm sure you remember, because it happens to everybody. And it may not have happened to you because you were always so prepared. I can never remember a time watching an Auburn game and somebody scored a touchdown and I was like, oh, Jerraud Powers, that was a bust. Jerraud Powers busted. I can never remember you busting the coverage.
No, I used to take pride in not busting the covers. I ain't gave up a touchdown or two.
Well, yeah, you know what I mean, though. You know what I mean.
Like any DB, but I don't recall, giving up any big plays just because I'm missing an assignment or I busted a coverage and somebody was wide open. Yeah, I was a guy that kind of took pride in knowing my job and knowing what everybody else is supposed to do. So I was one of those teammates. Sometimes I could be hard on my other teammates just because the expectation level that I would want everybody to rise up to when it came to the mental part. So certain guys used to think I was an a-hole, but I was a respectful a-hole, if that makes sense.
No, it does. It does, and you need those guys because again, you know as well as I do, the best teams police themselves, and it's something now that, and again, just going back, to your playing days. Can you talk? Because I had Junior Rosegreen on here, and he talked about the mental side of the game. Can you just talk about, because I think fans sometimes look at athleticism, which it is, as the main and only thing that matters. But especially when you're at that high of a level, you're at Auburn, you're in the SEC West, the mental side is way crazier than anyone who hasn't been exposed to it really sees.
Oh, for sure. Junior Rosegreen was my host when I went on my visit.
I bet you had a good time.
He actually talked me into coming. Yeah, I give him credit and talking me into coming to Auburn. But the perfect example of somebody that's probably wasn't the most athletic, period, and made all SEC 2 or 3 times in his career was Will Herring.
Opelika boy, baby. Opelika boy.
Opelika guy. If anybody ever wanted to look at a guy and see, like, how can I make it if I'm not the most athletic, just look at Will Herring. I mean, the guy was the starting safety on an undefeated 2004 loaded Auburn team, was probably the best team in Auburn history. White safety at that. You don't really see that in the SEC, period.
Not a lot. I can think of Craig Stelz, and that's about it.
Yeah, Craig. That's the only one I can think of is Craig Stelz. But you got a white safety, made all SEC, then transitioned to linebacker and made all SEC as a linebacker as well when Muschamp got there. And he wasn't the fastest, wasn't the most athletic, but Will knew literally every position on the football field, and that's who I kind of contribute my mental side, because when I first got to Auburn, it was Will Herring, Travis Williams, and all these veteran guys that I can just pick their brain and see how they work and how they learn. And those were the guys that kind of set the foundation for me on this is how you be a professional and this is how it should be. So I kind of attest those two guys on being more mentally prepared than just physically.
Definitely. And I appreciate you sharing that with us. And that's something, again, like we just talked about, that is such a huge part of the game. And kind of staying there, Jerraud, I want to talk about the NFL a little bit. Can you just kind of, and again, I know it's a loaded question, but can you just kind of paraphrase for people how much different the NFL is than even the SEC West?
Yeah, I used to joke when we first got into the league. I used to be like, oh man, like this NFL schedule don't got nothing on the SEC schedule I had, last year or whatnot. I used to joke, but the biggest difference from a SEC guy coming to the NFL would just be the fact that everybody that you're going against, has the ability to beat you, if that makes sense. I know from my perspective in the SEC, I know when I say this, some people be like, wow, I don't see how y'all do it. But I used to be like, man, we'll play Florida and I have to match up with Percy Harvin, Lewis Murphy, and all those guys. And I said the very next week, I got a freshman in A.J. Green that just got to town and a sophomore quarterback in Matt Stafford who just got to town that they're about to make a name for themselves. Then the week after that, I got a freshman Julio Jones at Bama. Then the first game of the season, I have a Jordy Nelson in Kansas State. So I'm telling everybody, like week in, week out, I have always faced like a top elite receiver. But there has been weeks where I just knew like, there's no way these guys like have a guy that can beat me. Going into the NFL, I'm talking, it'll be a guy that you've never heard of and he's just as good as the starter. It's just in the NFL is more business. If you get drafted a certain round, you're going to have more opportunities than the next guy. And it'd be those type situations. You'd be like, man, I don't see how this guy didn't even get drafted. He's on practice squad, but he's beaten, say, a Patrick Peterson in practice during the course of the week, and you're just like, man, this guy's just as good as our starting receiver. So it's that's the biggest difference in the transition. You literally got to be on your P's and Q's every snap.
Yeah, Jerraud, you knocked that one out of the park. That's exactly right. And speaking of that, you brought up Jordy, you brought up Julio, you brought up AJ, you brought up Percy. Out of those four, and I want to guess before you answer, what after you played that game, was there one of them, and I'm gonna guess Julio, that you were like, dog, this dude is one of the coldest I've ever seen?
Let me see. You got Julio. I mean, when you think Ole Miss had Mike Wallace and those boys.
He was nasty. People forget about him.
Yeah, people forget about that. But I tell people all the time, like when we played Alabama, Julio was a freshman. Don't get me wrong. Julio had a great freshman year, but he wasn't Julio yet, if that makes sense. Everybody knew what he was about to become, but I think I might have held Julio to maybe 30 yards that Bama game, and they killed us that game. But when we played Georgia beat us in 08, and we were bad in 08, don't get me wrong, but Georgia beat us like 16 or 14 or something like that. Yeah. And I remember leaving that game saying like, man, that AJ Green kid is going to be legit. Yeah. He just had a different mentality. I remember I was trying to talk trash to Julio, and Julio wouldn't say a word back, like literally not one word back. But AJ was giving it right back. Like if I had something to say, he had something to say back.
Awesome.
And he was like 17 years old at the time. And that's when I was like, oh yeah, he's gonna be a dog when it's all said and done.
Without a doubt.
Him and Percy probably the top two guys I probably faced in college that I was just like, yeah, these guys right here are legit for sure.
No doubt. Shoot, I remember I was at the Auburn-Georgia game in 2010, with Cam, and Auburn beat Georgia, but AJ Green ripped Auburn apart, and they tried to double cover him. They tried to do everything. And man, I was watching it. There was nothing you can do. And you know as well as I do, sometimes, and you hate to say it, but it's the truth. Sometimes, just like in baseball, you got to tip your cap, man. And there was a lot of cap tipping in that game. But, Jerraud, the biggest another thing about your game that I really liked was I always felt like you had really good timing. Whether the ball was in the air, whether it was you breaking on something. Did you used to, in zone coverage, did you used to kind of cheat the quarterback a little bit if you had enough cushion?
Oh yeah, I used to bait. I love it. Bait guys. Like I said, I wasn't the fastest or the tallest, so I used to have to try to do things that play in my favor. Yeah. I knew if I messed up if I messed up in any way technique-wise, that I didn't have the skills to recover from it. Like, let's just say a Patrick Peterson, he can mess up at his press technique, but he runs 4.3 out of bed, so he has the ability to catch up if you mess up. I didn't do that. I couldn't do that. So I used to have to find ways through film watching and just practicing, talking to coaches and stuff, ways I could just bait the quarterback and doing stuff. And I just played to my strengths. I knew if I played a bigger receiver, they were going to try to throw fade balls on me. So I used to position myself in certain ways to where if it did come, I can put myself in a position to where I can have a 50-50 chance at it as well.
Which is all you can ask for at some point.
Like you said, I just had a knack for just getting the ball out. If I couldn't catch it. So it was just one of those natural ability type things.
Yeah, exactly. I used to tell my DBs, the ones that, maybe weren't as fast or maybe a little bit shorter, you got to be able to dribble with your left, man. You got
for sure.
And that's a big deal. It's a big deal. But looking toward this year, Jerraud, because I know you keep up with it, man. I know you see where Auburn is right now. You got Bo Nix coming back. The defense. Yep. Auburn defense is always going to be Auburn defense. The biggest the question is the offensive line, but just looking at it as a former player, as a former elite player, as a professional player, how do you see Auburn in 2020?
Man, if I take away all the stuff with the corona and not being at the facility and doing all of which everybody's on the same page as far as schools when it comes to that, if I take that away, I'm excited. When you talk about the struggles we went through last year and we still had an opportunity to make some noise. I mean, you talk about a 3-point loss at LSU, a 10-point loss at Florida, which was even closer than the 10 points. And then you got Georgia. Then you got Georgia who beats us 21-14 at home, a 7-point loss. I mean, you take those games right there. You got a freshman quarterback who saw you couldn't have scripted any better as far as what Bo had to face in his freshman year. Like, you're happy he had to go to LSU and face that in the year that LSU had. You're happy he had to go to Florida and face what he faced at Florida and playing an elite Georgia team at home and face what, you're happy. So going into this year, there's nothing that Bo hasn't seen. He's already saw everything that he needs to see as a quarterback going into his sophomore year. So you would just expect him automatically to make that freshman to sophomore jump, like that big jump that everybody expects him to make. And I think that now he'll be able to carry the guys along with him. Last year, I thought it was more veterans trying to carry Bo along.
The D lineman, basically.
Yeah, and I think that'll be reversed. I think now Bo will really put his foot on the offense and carry those guys, make a lot of people better than what they were. Like, I think you'll really see Bo's talent this year at the quarterback position because he won't be as nervous and he'll just be more relaxed and he can just play. Defensively, you pay Kevin Steele, $3 million a year now, and I love everything Coach Steele's done since he's been at Auburn. And I think this year the fans will finally see that the staple and the foundation that he set since he's been there was really since Muschamp got there first, and then he came and right after Muschamp and just build what those guys built before they left. I think everybody is just going to appreciate the things that he's done. I mean, you look at 2 years ago when we had Carlton Davis, Jamel Dean, and all those guys, everybody knew our strength was the secondary. I mean, we could lock up man-to-man. We were long. We had length. We had good safeties. Then those guys get drafted second round, and then all of a sudden it's a D-lineman's team. It's like, man, he's developed all these great D-linemen. Now we got 3-4 top D-linemen, and then all of a sudden those guys get drafted, and everybody now is talking like, man, Auburn might have the best linebacker core in the SEC.
Yeah.
When you look at what we got coming back. So I think that just shows you the foundation Kevin Steele has brought. Like, every year it's been a different group on the defense that's been like the head of the group. Yeah. And I'm just eager to see, with him losing what he lost this year on defense, like, who's going to step in and play. Because I know the defense is going to be good. It's just a matter of us realizing who's the next Derek Brown is, or who's the next Thomas, or who's the next this, because we got guys ready to do it. It's just like now we're at the point now on defense, we're just ready for whatever name's going to pop up. That's going to be the new headline on our defense. So I'm just excited to see what the defense is going to do, because I know this offseason he was excited because he got a bunch of people that's fighting for position. So he's at a new point with the defense to where he's looking for somebody to take heed. So.
Yeah, and Auburn reloads on defense. I wouldn't be surprised to see Big Cat, have a breakout year, or somebody right now that nobody's really thinking about. That's typically how it goes. But Jerraud, man, I really appreciate you joining us. We got to have you back as we get closer to the season. Great analysis, man. I knew your analysis was going to be good. I remember watching you play, man. You didn't mess up. So I appreciate you joining us, man. Appreciate everything you did, and I know our audience does as well. And like I said, man, they can find you on Twitter. Do you want to drop your Twitter handle on here?
Yeah, Twitter, JPowers25 or 26. I'm not sure off the top of my head.
Hey, it's all. They'll find you. They'll find you.
So, yeah. And y'all let me know whenever you need me. You got me, so.
Definitely, Jerraud. Well, thanks, man. You're a great dude. You're a class act and a great representation of Auburn University in the Southeastern Conference, man. And I look forward to talking to you soon, brother.
All right, appreciate it, man.
And that was Jerraud Powers, former corner extraordinaire guy, did it all, played special teams, played in 06, 07, and 08 for his senior season, got drafted by the Colts, played for the Cardinals, played for the Ravens, and again, just a guy that had an unbelievable career. And you can tell why he was so well-liked and why he's so respected in the community and among his peers. So again, we thank you guys for joining us. Another special edition, former SEC player edition. Remember, you can find us at Twitter at The Jboy Show. You can find us on Instagram at The Jboy Show. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere you get your podcasts. You can find us on Facebook. Just type in Jake Crane. We have a Jboy Show page on there as well. Remember, we're brought to you by the Investor Brand Network, the #1 place for PR and marketing. You can find them at IBN.com. Michael McCarthy's the CEO, is an unbelievable dude. They have great packages and can help you out. And as usual, shout out Faison. Does an unbelievable job in the studio. Like I said, he's literally the Harry Potter of this whole thing. So I appreciate you guys joining us. And Jboy is gone.